This is a fan-generated show. If you would like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com, and also don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. All your support is greatly appreciated.
Good evening. Welcome to the Glazov Gang. Tonight, the Hillary FBI fix. Backed by special demand, former senior INS Special Agent Michael Cutler. Mr. Cutler, welcome back to the Glazov Gang.
Always great joining you, Jamie. Thank you so much for having me on.
Great to see you again. Michael, looks like the FBI, somebody got to the FBI. What do you make of the whole thing?
It smells bad. It's remarkable. James Comey had an impeccable reputation. The Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, had a wonderful reputation. Although with Lynch, I knew we were in trouble when she did the confirmation hearing and made that ridiculous statement that anybody in the country has the right to work. Illegal aliens don't have that right. So already I started to wonder about where she was coming from, as the saying goes. Comey was a stunner, I have to tell you. And if you look at all the events within the last week, it was like every single day there was an event. Bill Clinton's clandestine meeting on board the Attorney General's government airplane. Within hours, the Benghazi report gets released. On Saturday, Hillary stops by for a casual cup of coffee and a 3.5-hour deposition. Then you have Comey coming forward with his statements. There was one after another after another. But, I want to take this conversation in a slightly different direction. I've been watching the coverage. I listened to Rudy Giuliani, who used to be Comey's boss, by the way. And he was the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District. And I did a lot of work in both the Southern and Eastern Districts of New York, bringing immigration cases, drug cases, cases involving terrorism. So I'm familiar with the process. But what's being left out of the conversation, and it's clear that Hillary absolutely did things that would have gotten anybody else prosecuted. I find it remarkable, by the way, and I do have to make this point, that Comey said that a prosecutor wouldn't take the case. The elements of the crime are easy to prove. This is not a difficult case. Once you can show that she set up a server in her house and moved classified material, government material, through that server without the protections that you normally associate with a government network, right there, and this isn't an accident. You didn't accidentally set up a server, and it wasn't just one. If you look at the statement by Comey, there were several servers that were set up. They know of 110 emails that had classified material up to and beyond top secret in some cases. But we also don't know about the thousands of other emails that have gone missing, probably permanently, unless maybe WikiLeaks got a hold of it. God only knows.
Okay, Michael, let me interrupt for 1 second. If Bruce Thornton made this, point at Front Page Magazine. He's a Shulman Fellow at Front Page Magazine. And Thornton says if a drunk driver gets into a car, God forbid kills somebody, gets in an accident, and then says, I didn't intend to do anything, he would not get off, right?
He'd be charged with, at the minimum, criminally negligent homicide.
Okay, where in the law does it say that if she didn't have intent, then she should not be prosecuted? That is not in the law.
No, it's not. It's not an element of the crime.
And Andy McCarthy at National Review pointed out that the FBI, Comey, they are literally rewriting the law.
Yes,
okay.
They are. And if you noticed, Comey put on his jet skis and zipped out of there right afterwards. But tomorrow should be a very interesting hearing where he's going to appear before the House of Representatives to explain what he said and what he did. But here's the thing that I want everybody to focus on. I think it's clear. If you look at what Giuliani said, if you look at what Andy McCarthy, by the way, very accomplished prosecutor involved with the 93 terror prosecutions. These aren't amateurs. This isn't the guy that runs a little law service down the corner and fixes and prepares leases and that sort of thing. These are key government prosecutors who've handled the most sensitive and significant criminal prosecutions for the United States Department of Justice. They know from whence they speak. And all the law says is that because she handled the materials that she did so, I'm trying to remember the exact legal term, but she certainly met the standard for being way out of bounds, okay? But here's what's not being discussed. The real significance. And as an agent, this is what I had to grapple with on a daily basis. We're using that general term intelligence. It gets thrown around a lot. We don't need to do anything. If we have good intelligence, we can prevent terrorist attacks. Well, what exactly is intelligence? And there's all different sources and forms of intelligence, and the fact that it was compromised, and Comey made the point that because she was overseas when she did what she did, the odds were good, if not airtight, that our enemies got access to what she knew. Now, what does that tell them? Number one, not only telling them what we know, but it tells them where their vulnerabilities are. That will enable them most likely to plug the hole so that we will lose that vision through that window that got us that intelligence in the first place. Item number one. Item number two, it may lead our enemies and terrorist organizations to people who provided the intelligence once they know what we had. This could get people killed. Perhaps people that were targeted for a drone strike because Hillary was involved with that process, from what I have read, were moved to a place of safety once they realized that these guys were in the crosshairs of our predator drones. So now we have an additional problem. Now we come to the issue of potential for blackmail. Trump talked about that. Every which way you look at it, there's no good news to be found. But the biggest issue is the intelligence itself may now permanently be crippled, where we won't be able to go back in and gather more vital intelligence to help us to protect our national security. And you see, that hasn't been discussed. And some of this intelligence may have actually been gathered by people who were killed in the process of obtaining it. Think of all those stars on the wall at CIA headquarters in Langley. These are American intelligence officers who gave their lives in performance of their duties to safeguard America, and the work they did was so secret that their names aren't even attached to those stars that represent their precious lives. We don't know if any of those stars on that wall relate back to them, but I'll tell you one thing we do know that the emails more than likely related back to, and that's how we found out about the emails in the first place: Benghazi. The whole idea that we had an ambassador killed, 3 security officers killed, and you have to ask the question, and it's a rhetorical one. I don't have the answer. I don't know that anyone does. But is it possible that their lives were lost, that their safety was compromised because of the haphazard and illegal way that Hillary Clinton dealt with very sensitive national security information? Isn't that an interesting question to be asked and to be considered?
Absolutely, Michael. And look, we have this damage to national security over and over and over again with the Obama administration. Every chapter, every page. I don't think...
Administration, I hate to interrupt you.
Yeah.
When Bill Clinton first came to Washington, and I was an agent back then, we couldn't believe it. He expected to enable staffers to sit in on his morning brief, his intelligence brief, which is at the highest levels of security, and they hadn't even finished their vetting process. Their attitude towards security has been an absurdity.
Yeah.
And now here we come to 2 more problems. Number one, and I know this from personal experience, I held a top secret clearance, not as high a clearance as Hillary has, I assure you, but it was a top secret clearance. And every 5 years, those of us with a top secret clearance had to undergo a reinvestigation. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it was lengthy, it was costly, it was a pain in the neck. I used to joke that it was like going to a bureaucratic proctologist. But, I mean, they could sit you down in a room for hours. I mean, hours, and go over every detail of your life. Anything they felt related back to your being a vulnerable person, or a person who could be blackmailed, or a person who demonstrated lack of good judgment, think about that, could lose their security clearance. How in the world do you not lift Clinton's security clearance, even if they're not prosecuting her? If they lifted her security clearance, because certainly if anybody I ever worked with did anything that came anywhere near this, if they weren't in jail, they certainly would have lost all access to intelligence material and sensitive material. How in the world can the President of the United States, Commander-in-Chief of our armed forces, carry on his or her duties without a security clearance? And how do you give her a security clearance after all that was disclosed by Comey?
Well, also, I mean, Michael, Huma Abedin, I mean, the evidence of all the links that she has in terms of her Muslim Brotherhood family, in terms of the organization she worked for as an editor that's linked to the Muslim Brotherhood, etc., etc., etc. How many minutes went into interrogating her, I wonder, in terms of clearing her?
Look, we have a real mess. And how in the world will the government in the future be able to take action against an agent or other employee who shows this kind of blatant disregard for national security. What are they going to say? Oh, you're the guy that we're going to prosecute because you're only a civil servant? No, the President of the United States needs to lead by example. What example exactly did Hillary Clinton set? I know there are people that have their misgivings about Donald Trump. I personally think that what he wants to do makes sense. I wish he would dial down some of his stuff. But the goals that he wants for America, I agree with. But the problem that we are faced now is Hillary is not a viable alternative. And I say this to anybody who's having doubts. You cannot allow Hillary into that Oval Office as the president, knowing the way that she conducts business, the way that she has an utter disregard for our national security. And by the way, here's the other question. Why did she do it? Why did she go to the bother of setting up a series of private servers in her house, knowing full well that this was against regulation, at great expense, and it only leads me to make one supposition. She wanted to keep emails that she was involved with on duty in her official capacity away from the prying eyes of the American people and government and accountability.
Thank you, Michael. We got to wrap up here. Just let me ask you this. You know, we've got Lois Lerner pleading the fifth. Nothing is done. We've got Benghazi. Now we've got this. You know, I think a lot of people feel, I feel this way, the Obama administration is simply laughing in people's faces.
And the contempt that they're showing for the American people and the lives of Americans. You know, I was almost going to start the program today by asking you that we should be checking into Hillary Clinton's citizenship claim. She is showing as much contempt for our law as do illegal aliens who are aided and abetted by this administration. You know, there's an interesting T-shirt that I've seen illegal aliens wear, especially the younger ones, that says undocumented, unafraid, and unapologetic. We have the right to do what we want. Doesn't it almost sound like Hillary as well?
Absolutely. Michael, please, very briefly, what was going on in Comey's brain? What do you think got to him? They got to him, right? What do you think happened there?
You know, as an agent, I dealt with facts, not speculation. I have no idea, but I will tell you I was stunned. Yeah. He laid out a clear and unequivocal case for an indictment, and that's where I thought the discussion was going, right up until the point when he said there would be a recommendation of no prosecution. And by the way, that is so unusual. For the FBI to conduct this kind of a painstaking investigation, come up with all these pieces of evidence of violations of law that involve national security, these are serious felonies, and then it was like all wind up and no pitch. The punchline to the joke is, in spite of all this, we're going to walk away. And doesn't it make you wonder why Loretta Lynch, the Attorney General, was so quick to say, I'm going to accept the recommendations of the FBI? And
Obama's campaigning with Hillary at the same time.
Yeah. He says that nobody knows what I'm about to say. Then why was Obama getting on Air Force One with Hillary Clinton? How would he have looked if, in fact, Comey said we need to indict this woman?
Sad times, scary times, simply outrageous. Truth is stranger than fiction. Michael Cutler, under 30 seconds, what are your profound thoughts in conclusion?
The American people get the government we deserve. We have got to make our government accountable. Today, the Senate voted against going after sanctuary cities, more concerned about illegal aliens than the lives of Americans. You see a president and an administration that has nothing but contempt for the laws, the Constitution, American lives, and national security. We, the people, need to come to a verdict in the voting booth come November. That's where the verdict will come in.
Michael Cutler, you are a noble and courageous man. It is always an honor and a privilege to have you on the Glazov Gang.
Thank you so much. Be well.
Thank you so much, Michael. And don't forget, we are a fan-generated show. Please go to jamieglazov.com to support this program and make sure you are subscribed to the YouTube channel of the Glazov Gang. We'll see you on our next edition. Good night.